Hi, this is Jennifer Gaddy, second vice chair for the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. Today we're going to talk about how to identify your precinct's 2026 Get Out the Vote targets and vote. This video is intended for people who already have a login to VoteBuilder and have maybe used it a little bit, but are looking for some pointers. If you need more in-depth training, you can look in our county party library or contact me, jennifer@mecdems.org, for ideas on where to go next. So what we're going to do first is create a new list. So that's under the lists panel. If your front page doesn't look like this, try toggling this on-off button under Explore New. This is the old interface, which I prefer. So we're going to create a new list. Quick tip, the search criteria are listed alphabetically, as you can see, activist codes, addresses, etc. There are certain ones I use the most, and by clicking the star, you can bookmark it and send it to the top of the page. Today, we're going to use home districts. We're going to use party. We are going to use scores and voting history. So if you haven't already bookmarked your most used criteria, I would go ahead and do that. You can also rearrange these by clicking and dragging them if you like. This is the order I like to keep these in. Actually, I like voting history above. Everyone's precinct is different. We have different numbers of people in our districts. Some have more or fewer Democrats. Our turnout levels are different. So some of this is going to vary based on the size and makeup of your precinct. But in general, we're going to use some guidelines to help locate those Democrats that may need a little more help and encouragement to turn out. So I'm going to use my own precinct as an example, precinct 226, so you would select yours. Then I can go ahead and close this tab, get it out of the way. I want to be sure to select party. If I don't select party and I hit preview, I'm going to see 4171 registered souls in my precinct. If I click Democrat and hit preview my results, you'll see that I have 1163. Well, I happen to know that the county party chair, Wesley, has set my goal for my precinct, our goal, as being 728 Dems to vote in 2026. So that would represent 60% of our Dems to turn out. So I'm going to try to find the votes that we need to reach. So first I'm going to get a sense of how many people are voting, how many of my Dems voted. Right here, I can do what's called a Boolean search, which means I can look for people who did any or all or at least, etc., of different things. So for this purposes, I'm going to find all my Dems who did all of the following. They voted in the 2024 and 2022 general election. So out of the 1,160 Democrats, 1,163, 524 of my Dems voted. These are not the folks that I want to be reaching out to unless I am looking for volunteers. These folks are very likely to vote. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck these, set this back the way it was. All right, and we're back to preview the 1163. And now I'm going to look in the scores tab. These scores are provided by the DNC, Democratic National Committee, and they score each voter based on how likely they are to support and vote for Democrats if they turn out. You can see a little information here, the little pop-up question mark, and how likely they think each person is to vote in this year's election in 2026, which, as a reminder, is not a presidential year. Okay, so I've got my 1,162 registered Dems, and I've got just over 500 that I know are very likely to turn out because they voted both in 2022 and 2024. So how do I find the other 500 and 600 Dems? And then I'm going to add another maybe 10%. So how do I find 600 to 700 Dems who are not as likely to turn out? They will probably turn out, but they're not a sure bet. So I'm going to do that by using the Clarity General Turnout Score. Let's put 50% in here. How many of my 1,100 Dems does the DNC think is 50% or better likely to turn out? Answer is 700. Well, that's not going to get me to the 800 plus people that I need once I back out those 500. So I'm going to take this down to 40% likely. Okay, now we're at 787. Let's take it down to 30% likely. And now we're at a number that we want, 852 Dems. So we've got that, all right? And we're going to go ahead and run that search. So this is, to sum up, 852 registered Democrats that are 30 to 100% likely to turn out and vote in 2026. So now here's the second important step. And now we're at a number that we want, 852 Dems. So we've got that, all right? And we're going to go ahead and run that search. So this is, to sum up, 852 registered Democrats that are 30 to 100% likely to turn out and vote in 2026. So now here's the second important step. I am going to edit this search by removing some people. So I hit remove people. Now I'm back at my search, and I'm going to back out those diehard Dems who, and remember, we again have to pick all of these things. No, we don't, because we've already picked Democrats and people who voted, etc. So we're removing the people who did all of the following: voted in 2024 and 2022, and we're down to 337 people. So when I run that search, I can look under description to see who I searched for. Registered Democrats in precinct 226 who are between 30% and 100% likely to turn out in 2026. Anybody on this current list is at least 30% likely to turn out this year and didn't vote the last 2 years. That would include someone who moved to your precinct recently and didn't have a chance to vote in those last 2 elections. This would include people who weren't old enough to vote in those elections, people who just need a little extra encouragement to vote. So these are all good targets for you. In the next set of videos, I can show you some different ways to export these lists and use them.